Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everybody. We had a big week, 127 solo shots, bringing that counter to 150, a nice round number to begin the season. And I am just absolutely thrilled with how the baseball season has started thus far. And honestly, the fact that in the first start of the season, the earliest calendar no-hitter was thrown, and it wasn't by a true ace. It wasn't by a true ace. It was by Ronel Blanco of the Houston Astros, a guy who didn't start pitching until he was 22 years old. And what does he do? He goes out and as a fifth starter, filling in for current injuries, he throws a no-hitter against the Blue Jays' vaunted lineup. He only gave up 2 walks in the game, both of them to former Astro George Springer. He wouldn't allow his former team to get a perfect game on him. But Ronel Blanco is a guy who's 30 years old, and typically, if you're breaking out at 30 years old, you're not someone to pay attention to. But with the current Astros rotation, Framber Valdez is the ace. Justin Verlander has had some positive updates come out recently that he'll be back sometime, I think late this month, early May. And Christian Javier, who leads MLB right now in Stuff Plus, Saris's metric. They have Hunter Brown, who just got lit up yesterday. Luis Garcia's on the IL. Ronel Blanco has a legit chance to be a factor for the Astros this regular season. He didn't no-hit the Athletics. He didn't no-hit the Rockies. He didn't no-hit the Marlins. He no-hit the damn Blue Jays. And I think it's honestly something with 7 strikeout stuff, great command and control throughout the entire start. There was a fantastic play by Jose Abreu in the 9th to ice it. But this Astros team, much like the Dodgers, seem to have magic when it comes to hitters especially, but pitchers have went there and had success as well. The Astros, if I trust them to develop anything, it's pitching. And they've done a great job in the field with Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, Jordan, Kyle Tucker. But their pitching development has been fantastic for a long time now. So Ronel Blanco, congratulations. Earliest calendar no-hitter in baseball history. And it was against a very good lineup, a lineup that was making me feel very worried that I picked them to miss the playoffs early this season with the way they were playing. So congratulations, Ronel Blanco. First start of the year, starting with a no-no. It's going to be hard to keep that pace, but I do think Ronel Blanco is going to be a quality starter in the Astros rotation for the majority of the season, as opposed to what he was currently looked at as just a stopgap 5th starter. Now, I talked about some guys on the Astros that are on the injured list, but this injured list is getting a little too damn long. It's like that list from SpongeBob that just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. The IL going into the year, there was a ton of pitcher injuries last season as well as in spring. And now Justin Steele is on the IL. There's been guys like Sean Murphy getting added to the IL. This list is getting long and long and long. But the most heartbreaking to me, because this is a guy who some people picked as a sleeper Cy Young pick early in the offseason. But Yuri Perez, Marlins starter Yuri Perez, this is a guy that came up at 20 years old last year and did stuff that only the true greats have really done. There was only a few names on there that didn't end up being multiple-time All-Star Cy Young candidates. And Yuri Perez is going to miss the whole year. It started with a blister problem, and now he's having Tommy John surgery. He's going to miss the entire season along with Sandy Alcantara. It's a big part of the reason the Marlins have started 0-8 for the first time in franchise history, and they've been absolutely abysmal to watch. If I knew Yuri Perez would not pitch a single inning for the Marlins this year, I probably would have picked them to be behind the Mets in the NL East standings. But as we stand here today, I picked the Marlins to finish third again, but to not make the playoffs. And they are the first playoff team from the year prior to start the season 0-5 in a very long time. So I hope the Marlins can get their first win out of the way, but this season is looking more and more lost as these updates keep coming in about the Marlins pitching staff. Sandy Alcantara already out for the year. Braxton Garrett is hurt as well. But the IL is just unbelievable right now. If you go across the league, Trevor Story just got hurt last night in Anaheim, and that looks like he's going to be having an IL stint for sure. Spencer Strider is getting an MRI today because his elbow doesn't feel right. His velocity's been down. Garrett Cole, obviously, is coming back from injury. The list of pitchers on the IL is ridiculous. Garrett Cole, Kodai Senga, Gavin Williams, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Yuri Perez. The list just goes on and on and on. Guys that won't pitch this year, Sandy Alcantara, Brandon Woodruff, etc. But the fact that the injuries are already starting to pile up in a way is unfortunate to see. Whether it's great catchers in the game like Sean Murphy, or pitchers that have been awesome, or hitters that have started the year really good but got hurt, like Oswaldo Cabrera of the Yankees. The IL is getting longer and longer by the day. I understand this sport is a marathon. It's a toll on the body. 162 games doesn't get done by many players anymore. But the fact that there's IL stints this early in the season usually ends up, for the players that started the year healthy, it usually ends up kind of having a snowball effect that gets worse and worse as the season goes on. These nagging injuries, they can add up and they can turn into more serious injuries with more missed time. So prayers to all the players that are currently dealing with injuries, and I hope that the IL list starts getting shorter as opposed to longer, as guys like Justin Verlander, Gavin Williams try to come back off the IL to begin the season. Now, on a positive note, stay golden, Pony Boy. Here at second base, your outsider's reference for the day, for those of you that didn't catch it, there's been some really great performances so far this season. And as a Red Sox fan and the golden reference, Jarren Duran, who apparently he got rid of the blonde hair, which was very unfortunate, but that didn't stop him from being on an absolute tear. Now, Jarren Duran was a very hyped prospect in the Red Sox system. He is not young by any means. He was looked at as more athlete than baseball player. But Jarren Duran, let alone last night, where he drove in 2 runs, including a home run in the 8th inning to give the Red Sox the lead. But he's hitting .394 this season, 13 hits so far in the Red Sox first 8 games. Homer, obviously, that I just talked about. He's already gotten over half a win in an 8-game sample size as the Red Sox leadoff hitter. This is a guy who has stolen bases and just been an absolute menace on the base pads, a league-leading 6 stolen bases so far, hasn't been caught stealing once. He's also walked twice. So he's someone that I think is going to be a huge X factor for the Red Sox, regardless of where they finish in the standings. I know they're in first place right now, coming off playing 3 AL West offenses that I don't think are very good. But Jarren Duran, stay golden, Pony Boy. The golden comes from him, but there have been a lot of other performances that have been awesome. Shane Bieber, after his opening day, just abolition of the Oakland Athletics, he went out again and didn't allow any runs given up in his first 2 starts. He did that back in his Cy Young season in 2020. So Shane Bieber looks to be all the way back. I'm wearing my Chicago Cubs shirt today because my boy, my NL Rookie of the Year pick, Shota Imanaga, not only was he the first player in Cubs history, the Cubs are one of the oldest franchises in the sport, to make their MLB debut on the team's home opener, but he went out there and was one of 3 Cubs in history in their debut, no matter where it is, to have 6+ innings and 0 earned runs. He also struck out 9 batters. I get it was the Rockies, but to do that in your MLB debut, when we saw Yamamoto's welcome to MLB moment over in Korea against the Padres, it's just absolutely amazing to see Shota Imanaga. The stuff was straight up nasty. He was having players reach out of the strike zone. He was blowing the ball by guys. And I've said it when I picked him to be my Rookie of the Year. His stuff plays. It doesn't matter if it's the Rockies. He's going to get a real test against the Dodgers this weekend. He can really pitch. And I think that his stuff is going to be consistently hard for hitters to adjust to this season, and why I think he is such a great pick for NL Rookie of the Year, even at 29 years old. When you have that kind of movement and you have a splitter coming from the left side and you have a lower center of gravity than the majority of pitchers, it is a true outlier compared to a lot of the big 6'3" aces that throw right-handed straight line fastballs. So Shota Imanaga is going to be tricky all season long, and I am just absolutely thrilled to see him start the season on that kind of note. I expect him to surprise some people too against the Dodgers. He might not go 9 strikeouts and 0 earned runs, but he's going to give some quality against one of the league's most vaunted offenses. So I'm excited to watch that. And Mookie Betts, I feel great about doubling down right now for my NL MVP pick. Honestly, all my picks right now, I feel very good about. But that's got to be the one you feel the best about. I understand it's a small sample. I understand it is early. But when you look at Mookie Betts so far this season, he is top 2 in all of these stats and 1 in the majority of them. But Mookie Betts, OPS, batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, home runs, RBIs, runs scored, hits, extra base hits, total bases, walks, WAR, both offensively and defensively, and OPS plus. He is one of the most unstoppable hitters in the game right now. He's playing a above average shortstop at 30 years old. He is unbelievable. And I just hope that he can keep this up. It's reassuring when you see your picks for awards do well to start the season. But like I said earlier, it's a marathon of a season. It's a long season. So I'm hoping that these players can stay golden, can continue the success that they're having, even not at the same level, but for a prolonged period of time, to get that support from the writers later on. I think that is going to be a lot of fun to watch. There are just so many guys that are doing well right now. The Texas Rangers offense has been electric, picking up their pitching staff plenty of times. They're currently sitting in first place. The Tigers started the season 6-0 before getting their first loss of the year. They've been really impressive so far, even against competition that's not top tier. But in the National League, I think the bigger takeaway has been the NL Central. I felt the hardest picking that division. I picked the Cubs to win it. Justin Steele missing time early does not make me feel good about that pick, because that division is splitting absolute hairs. They are just absolutely so close, top to bottom, whether it is the Pirates that started the season really hot and have a lot of good veterans to go with their young star O'Neal Cruz, whether it is the Cardinals that have a ton of great veterans and are hoping to have better pitching this year, or the Reds who just have a ton of young electric players, some that are on the IL as well. This division, top to bottom, the Brewers have been in the top, and I expected them to take a step back. They've been really good to start the year. It's going to be a dogfight in the NL Central, at least for the first half of the season. Teams might have injuries or separate themselves down the stretch, but this division, honestly, all 5 teams can win. And I hope that Justin Steele can get back healthy to make my horse in the race feel and look a little bit better going forward. But just some guys that are absolutely underrated in the sport. It's because they play in these Midwest markets that don't have as much media coverage, but there's just a ton of really exciting guys that are making a ton of impact so far. Now, here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we like to throw it back down the third base line to a moment in baseball history. And April 6th has no shortage of amazing things, but I'm just going to highlight a single day. On this day, April 6th, in 1973, we just had a truly impactful day in baseball history. And I'm going to start with the great one. Roberto Clemente had his number retired by the Pittsburgh Pirates. They had that ceremony, his 21. No Pirate ever wore it again. This came after losing him months prior, and they wanted to honor him for his service to the Pittsburgh community and to the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball franchise. So they retired his number on this day. And that alone, talking about Roberto Clemente, who I talked about actually pretty recently, a guy who's the gatekeeper for the 3,000 hit club, a guy who had one of the greatest arms of all time out in right field, a true great contact hitter that won batting titles. This day wasn't just special for Roberto Clemente, because on this day, Ron Blomberg of the New York Yankees became the first designated hitter in baseball. Now, I know a lot of people, especially National League Baseball fans, don't love the designated hitter for a number of reasons. This is something that just eliminated the pitcher hitting, and it eliminated some level of strategy because you have 9 guys that can hit in the lineup and you don't have to work around it and pinch hit and pinch run at times. But I think that Ron Blomberg's moment, not just because he ended up being the first DH, just by terms of appearance, getting an at bat, but Ron Blomberg in this game was not supposed to be the guy that was the first DH. The Boston Red Sox signed future Hall of Famer Orlando Cepeda going into the 1973 season to be their DH, to be that guy that was the first DH in baseball. But there was 2 walks in the first inning and a misjudged bloop hit that brought Blomberg to the plate before Cepeda got a chance. And the designated hitter position was expected to be something that kept older players around in the league that didn't have their legs quite under them anymore, but were still able to put their bat in the lineup and contribute to teams and hit better than the majority of pitchers. Because that has been a truth. While there are some pitchers that absolutely rake, Carlos Zambrano, Bob Gibson, Don Drysdale, etc., the list is pretty short in terms of all the guys who have played Major League Baseball. Shohei Ohtani obviously being a unicorn. But Fenway Park, 1973, the designated hitter was debuted. Red Sox, Yankees. And I find that really fitting that the Yankees ended up beating out the Red Sox to have the first designated hitter in Major League Baseball history, because the Red Sox went on to later have the greatest designated hitter in baseball history in David Ortiz, Big Papi. But this was just amazing that in 1973, this was looked at as a completely crazy idea for baseball, because the pitcher had always hit, and it was truly a revolutionary moment in the sport. But Ron Blomberg was the first official DH in 1973. But what a lot of people don't know, I think, about the story is that talk of a designated hitter in place of the pitcher or in addition to the pitcher was started by J.W. Spalding back in 1891. This was first discussed. It was then brought up in 1928 as, hey, this idea was thrown out there a while ago. We now have a couple more decades of pitchers hitting and not being super successful. We want those guys to stay healthy and just be able to pitch. What can we do? They didn't bite. But in 1973, the American League president voted for the ability to have the designated hitter. And up until the 2020 COVID season, it was only in the American League. So it added almost another layer of strategy to the game, because not only were National League teams having to have the pitcher hit and work the lineup and bench around it, Tony La Russa putting the pitcher in the 8th spot as opposed to the 9th spot, etc. They had interleague play in the 90s, and then that would add a whole nother level of interest, because these National League teams that typically didn't have a DH, if they're playing at the American League ballpark, they'd have a DH and their pitchers could rest and not have to worry about hitting, and vice versa. If an American League team went to a National League ballpark, they had to have their DH play the field if they wanted that bat in the lineup, and they had to work around their pitchers hitting that weren't used to doing that regularly. So that was a whole nother level. But in 2020, shortened season, baseball voted to institute a universal DH, which I was absolutely thrilled about. I thought it was long overdue. And you saw across the league, even in that short 60-game sample size, that there was success way greater than the level the pitchers were giving offensively. And as much as I personally love watching a gem, I love watching a pitcher on the mound, offense is what sells tickets. And the fact that we were able to get more offense and pitchers were able to stay a little more healthy. Think Max Scherzer bunting and getting a black eye and a broken nose. Think pitchers getting hit in the hand and not being able to pitch, or running the base pads and pulling something that they're not used to using on the mound. There were so many injuries that happened, and now those are less likely to happen. The majority of injuries that happen now are with their arm doing their main objective and job. So baseball instituted the universal DH after a vote, and it's been the same for the last couple of years here now, and I think baseball is a lot better for it. But that wouldn't have happened if initial talks by J.W. Spalding didn't start the murmurs in 1891, and then again in 1928, and then the American League president allowing Ron Blomberg and Orlando Cepeda to be the first DHs in the American League on this date in 1973. And it's funny enough, neither one of them was the first DH to homer. The first DH to homer in a game was actually Tony Oliva on the same day, Twins legend and now Hall of Famer. He homered off of future Hall of Famer Jim Catfish Hunter on this day in 1973, on that same opening day, in an 8-3 win for the Twins. Just an amazing day in baseball. The fact that the DH was introduced with multiple Hall of Famers and Red Sox Yankees at Fenway Park, where David Ortiz would go on to be the greatest DH of all time, but also Roberto Clemente's number being retired by the Pirates in a truly heartwarming baseball ceremony. So I appreciate you for taking that ride with me back to April 6th, 1973. It's crazy how the game has changed in that short period of time. Now, there's a lot to watch for. I teased some of it with the NL Central because I believe that there's nobody separating in that division, so there's no one staying golden yet. But there are some things to watch for. I talked about Shota Imanaga facing the Dodgers, a real test. That's going to be interesting. We also get to see Ronel Blanco after blanking the Blue Jays for his first start of the season. He gets to face the vaunted Texas Rangers offense on Sunday. Will he be able to have back-to-back starts against elite offenses where he is maybe not no hit good, but quality start good? I think that'll be a really big test for him. He's been a huge fantasy baseball pickup in a ton of leagues, obviously with the no hitter. But I think the more important thing to watch is all these young players that have started the season in various ways. Evan Carter went 20 plate appearances without recording a hit. And now he had a really nice day at the plate yesterday in their 10-0 win of the Astros, my AL Rookie of the Year pick. The Rangers offense has been one of the best in baseball without Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford really hitting. And those two guys were the two popular picks for AL Rookie of the Year for good reason. They're super talented. So I expect those guys to start to come alive now as we get into the season. And in the National League, I talked about O'Neal Cruz. Elly De La Cruz has been awful to start the year. He's hitting below the Mendoza line, and he is making errors in the field on very routine plays. The Reds have to make a decision soon about where Ellie's going to play regularly. And I think if there wasn't so many injuries right now to the Reds' young players, that Elly De La Cruz might have been sent down already with the way he's playing. So just keep an eye on these young players, keep an eye on these injuries. And in terms of the podcast, don't just keep an eye on the Solo Shot Swag Tracker. I've been tweeting out every single solo home run hit this season, all 150 of them so far, on X over at Dominic Mana 44, as well as doing the daily updates on TikTok. But on the podcast here this month, I won't be doing my ticker at the bottom just yet. I have to wait till a month of baseball has been played, and then I'll start doing power rankings. But there is going to be some new segments coming to the show. At second base, there's going to be an opportunity. I have some guests lined up for a second voice to be here on the show and to talk various baseball topics over at second base. So if you have any interest or know of a baseball creator that you think would be a great fit to have a conversation with me on second base, definitely reach out to me at DominicMana44@gmail.com or DM me on Twitter at DominicMana44. I appreciate you guys spending your Solo Shot Saturday with me. For those of you that listen to the recording later this week, I really appreciate it. And I hope that we continue to enjoy this amazing baseball season. No hitters to injured list and then some. Have a good one, everybody.